Hello survivors and welcome to another Walking Dead Road to Survival video, and in this video we're going to be taking a first look at a brand new S Class character that's going to be coming to the game. In terms of the pronunciation of this name, I have googled it, and from what I understand it is basically like pronouncing Leo without having it as two syllables in Chinese, which is very hard to do for me as someone from the UK, and I think from what I've read, the best way you can do it as a sort of like a foreigner would just be to say Lee. It would be Mr. Lee, or most people are going to probably pronounce it Mr. Liu or Lu, but it is meant to be Mr. Lee apparently. There are some conflicting things that I've read on the internet, but I'm going to just call him Mr. Lee. And as a character, visually, he does look sick. This guy is part of the Typhoon series of characters, where we also have Heng Yen, Wang Fe, Lao Po, definitely characters who I already pronounced incorrectly, just FYI. But visually, I really do like this guy. It is questionable, but also kind of exciting when you look at him. He has got an attached weapon, as you can see, very, very shiny, flamboyant blade, but he's got a grenade in the other hand, and part of me is like, where's that character that has a grenade as a weapon? No, where is that character? But on the left hand side you can see how his avatar is going to look. He has got the sunglasses that he's got on the actual picture on the right hand side, his visuals as he'll look in the fight screen. And he's got a tattoo, as you can see, across the right hand side of his face. Everything is mirrored on the characters on the right hand side, just FYI, that's how it always works. We'll look at how his stats are. As 30 veteran rings, he has got 3,200 attack, 5,337 defense, and 3,501 HP. He is considered a damage dealer with these stats, and I'm going to be honest, I'm kind of getting tired of the amount of damage roll characters that are coming out into the game. Just bring out a character that is a tank, and I think this guy's a tank. I'm going to be honest, this guy's a tank. And the main reason I'm complaining is because when you look at something like arenas, there is actually tank arenas where you have to take tank characters. Personally, as a free-to-play who someone's not going in on characters consistently, I'm having to take 6 stars because you just don't have that many tanks. I'm guessing it's going to be quite similar to people who do go in for characters on a consistent basis, because so many characters are damage roll characters, and I'm not really sure why, especially when you've got stats like this. This guy's a tank. Come on, change it to being a tank. We'll check out his rush though and see what it brings to the table. It is Serrated Barrier. It's a 76 AP cost rush. It dealt 3,000 damage to one enemy for 3 turns. This character gets 75% defense for 3 turns, and all other teammates get 50% defense for 3 turns. So only really 2 things going on here. It does look like a lot more than this, but it is actually only 2 things. It is a defense buff for the entire team. It's just to everyone else it's slightly weaker than it is to himself, and it's some damage with the 3,000 bleed. The 3,000 bleed for 3 turns to one enemy is obviously absolutely mental. That's going to be 9,000 damage. If this character is used on a defense team, it's taking out pretty much any offensive character. He potentially could do the damage on attack as well, and that can obviously be, you know, lacerated turn 1 when it gets put down to 6,000 instantly, and then yeah, it's going to be disastrous basically. And you can obviously use this in other parts of the game, faction assault, that sort of thing. Now the second part, like I said, it is just one big buff. Everyone gets 50% defense, however Mr. Lee himself gets 75% defense. That's it. I'm not sure why there is going to be a differential there, why it's not just 60% to all or 50% to all, I don't know, but there is a difference in the buff that everyone receives. But this is actually pretty good. Obviously a full team-wide defense buff is nice, going to make your team much harder to hit afterwards, and that means the amount of incoming damage that you're going to take is going to be drastically reduced. Okay, so we have Mr. Lee on turn 2. We have commanded him in this situation to rush, and this is how it will work on a defense team. It's just to show you because I can control it and actually just talk about it while I'm doing it. If I rush Pete here, he will get a 3,000 bleeds, as you can see. 3,000 bleed, very hefty. All of my other teammates get a 50% boost to defense. Now, we have had Rick defend already, and as you know, with defense boost they stack, so it's going to be 50% from defending, 50% from actually getting the buff, and then 50% of the 50% on top of that, so 125% defense in this case. But Mr. Lee himself gets 75% defense. As you can see, it's just a little bit better than everyone else. Now, like I said before, if you did have a lacerator, you'd just be able to hit that straight away, and as you can see, 6,000 damage. It's going to be doing huge amounts of damage. We're going to actually just continue, see what happens, and you're going to see this sort of laceration you can get up. And then we go 12k. And obviously this can go again. He's not going to survive this, but this can go again. And we get this up to 24,000 bleed damage. Now, while that I don't think that's going to be very useful in raids, that, like I said before, could potentially be useful in other parts of the game, like Faction Assault. So straight up, first off, I want to say Mr. Lee looks great when you're actually using him. He just looks awesome as a character, really visually. Kind of subtle, but I like it. I do like it. It is also worth mentioning he has got a pin of a grenade in his mouth. I thought it was a cigarette, but it's actually the pin of a grenade. And obviously he's got a grenade in his hand, so he's just pulled out the pin with his teeth, and he's just about to throw that grenade at somebody, basically. But that was the rush, and you saw the sort of power that it can bring. Now, on a defense team, it's mainly going to be him just buffing his teammates, and the bleed is just sort of that added extra bonus. It isn't so quick to take someone down, so they could potentially out-heal it. But I mainly see this as a massive defense boost. Now, the issue here is it's not that much of an extensive rush. It's actually kind of low-key. Like I said, it's just 3,000 bleed to 1, and effectively everyone on your team gets a defense boost. I would like that extra thing tacked on generally for these sort of things at the end for himself. Maybe him giving himself resistance like we've seen in the past. We've seen characters like Michonne have resistance on their weapon. Could have given himself resistance for like 1 turn or something, or 2 turns to certain controlling factor. Maybe confuse, stun, taunt, one of the big ones. Or maybe giving himself focus, I'm not really sure. But something else needs to come on at the end of this just to make it a little bit more powerful. But we can go across and see what the active skill has to offer, and it is Camouflage, Heal, and Bleed. It has an initial cooldown of turn 1, so you can do this turn 1 on an attack team. You can also obviously do this turn 1 on a defense team. Cooldown of 4 turns, number of uses 5. This character gets Camouflage and gets 25% of their max HP for 4 turns. All enemies get 1,500 bleed damage for 3 turns. So instantly his character is looking like an actually, rather than him being a defense team character, he's looking like a tanky offense team character to build bleed teams around. This is something that I think is going to be very influential going forward for fast characters and alert characters, just based on the 4 slot upgrades they can get inside the armory. Now, this guy can get bleed off real quick. He's not going to gain any AP though from this active. That is going to be a major downside, as his rush is very, very powerful. But the first parts of this active is Camouflage, which means he would not get hit by extra damage. So for instance, if Priya was to rush someone with Rampage weapon, he would not get hit by any of the Rampage hits. And if Priya was to take down one of his teammates and then was to go on to attack him, she'd just stop attacking. We've seen this in the past with Camouflage. If you go back and look at my Camouflage video to see how it works, it is very powerful at stopping excess damage or extra damage on rushes and secondary hits from hitting someone with Camouflage. The 25% of their max HP for 4 turns is obviously insane, because that's 100% healed over 4 turns. It basically means that it's going to be quite hard to take this guy down without rushing him and taking him out in one foul swoop. And when it comes to the bleed on the active, it's pretty simple. You don't even have to select anybody, because it's all enemies. It isn't one enemy and adjacent enemies. You just do his active, and as you can see, everyone will get bleed. If you have lacerators on top of this, as you can see again, you can double this up to a 3k bleed instantly on any character of your choice. Like I say, I think this guy is going to be very influential on bleed teams, without a doubt, on offense. And as you can see, he's got the Camouflage 4 turns and the 4 turn heal. He gets 25% heal instantly, and then it'll be for 3 more turns at the beginning of his turn. What I'll do is I'll just attack. He should get attacked, or I mean, he might get attacked. We'll see. Gonna see some damage come out, but there, another heal would happen right now, and it's gone down to 2 turns. So it is 4 heals effectively, but he gets 1 instantly when he does the active. So obviously there is a bit of a downside to that heal, just because if you do it turn 1, it's only going to be a 3-turn heal. It's not that big a deal really, because you're not going to have taken any damage initially when you do it the first time. The second time, however, you could potentially obviously heal up instantly when you do it. It is going to be a 100% of the time he's gaining 25% of his max HP as well, because it has an initial cooldown of 1 and a cooldown of 4. It means he's just going to be constantly gaining HP, and he's going to also constantly have up Camouflage. Very interesting for sure. And the bleed damage is pretty nice. The fact that it goes to everyone, and of course you can just lacerate it straight away. It can be topped up nice and quick. And this is where we move on to his specialist skill, and this is kind of surprising. You would have seen it on the, obviously before, because the payback symbol is obvious. If this character were to take more than 30% of their max HP in a single rush or active skill, deal that same damage back to the attacker and up to 2 additional enemies. Now, the reason this is kind of strange is because parts of his kit actually kind of combat people being able to rush him. For instance, the camouflage means that he will not be hit by rushes unless he is targeted, which means it's going to be rarely happen because a lot of the time they'll target trait damage, and there's not really any heavy hitting greens right now that are sitting on defense teams. So it is kind of weird, I guess. You kind of want people to get hit with stuff when they got payback, so the camouflage kind of counteracts this. I'm not sure, I don't really think it plays into the rest of his kit amazingly well. I think this basically makes it so that he's more useful on defense, maybe. I don't really know in this case. I think it pretty much just means that he can be used on defense more with this payback. You can line him up with a shield, however. So like, for instance, if you have Frost, you can put him behind Frost. Any line damage from Princess can obviously hit him. But if he has that camouflage, it's not going to. So this is where it just kind of gets into that position where it's just like, I'm not sure what's going on here. The kit kind of counteracts that payback skill. So we'll just come up against a team we have actually been attacking with, just to make it nice and simple. We're going to get the rushes of the 2 characters that we actually want to obviously rush with turn 2. This is not going to be the way to do things, guys, because we're actually just going to destroy ourselves. Now, if we do the buff of Kenny, we target the Mr. Lee here. You can see he did do his active. I have tested this out a couple of times. He doesn't do his active every time, but if I was to select someone else with Priya and her rampage weapon obviously was to splash, it would not hit him. But we'll do that in a second attack. First off, I'm going to just show you how it works when you target payback. Now, he is unmodded. This is just a fair warning. He is unmodded. He's going to get destroyed here. But because I'm going to do such heavy damage, obviously, with payback, I'm going to have that damage reflected to 3 of my characters, and it's going to take them out. And that's pretty much the benefit of payback. Okay, this is just to show how the camouflage will work. I'll charge up the rushes on the 2 characters that I actually want to rush with. Hopefully, we do not control Mr. Lee himself. We're not going to do that. That's great. And then when we do actually rush, you can see his active has just been popped. He's got camouflage. And what we're going to do is we are going to do an attack boost here. This character has line damage. As you can see, deals 750% damage to a line of enemies. If I am to select Matteo here, it will not do any damage to him. As you can see, he blocks the damage. No incoming damage. But if I was to select Lee, it would obviously do damage to both. Now, this is where the downside comes in, because obviously you want a payback character there to protect the character that's with them. And this is where it's questionable that he's giving camouflage to himself. Camouflage to a teammate would be cool, but to himself doesn't make any sense at all in my mind. Now, if I was to just rush with Beta anywhere else, I'm pretty sure he just blocked it again, because you can see the animation where it actually just blocked it. It's nice that he's not receiving damage, but he's a payback character, and you do want him to get rushed. I would have nuked my own team twice with both of those rushes there, and because I didn't, I'm still alive. Now, the revives will come in because Tanya did gain some AP, but in certain teams, there's not going to be revives. There's not going to be chances to pick those characters up, and realistically, your main damage threat and your main issue on defense team could be Mr. Lee, so this is why it's kind of questionable. Is he a defense team character or not? And in my mind, I would say no. I don't think he's a defense team character at all, honestly. I don't think he's going to be someone who is going to be on a long-term defense team. I think he's going to be kind of like the start of a new attack team potential. I think we're going to see alert and fast characters come out to make a sort of top tier bleed team again, and it can sort of incorporate bleed characters that we've had before. For instance, Raulito, and even 6-star characters like Jiafeng, who is still useful even today. So I think there is potential for this guy, no doubt, on attack, but I think a lot of people will see the payback and just assume he's a defense team character, and I just don't think he's going to work that way. Now, he has got an attached weapon, and it is kind of strange. Mr. Lee's blocking Dragon Sword. It does look sick, though. We will definitely say that. It has got 30% attack, a medium bonus to AP when attacking, and reduced damage taken from basic attacks by 50%. Now, the 30% attack makes no sense at all. This should definitely be defense or HP. Definitely. This doesn't make any sense. I've got no idea why this attack. He doesn't get any attack boosts on his rush. He's a defensive character. This doesn't make any sense. I think this would be better, obviously, if it was defense, because his defense stat is already the highest, but I kind of want to have higher HP on payback characters that, you know, you need reasonable amounts of HP anyway. A medium bonus to AP when attacking is just like, okay, that's the upgrade slot. Whether you want to go full stat on this guy or you want to go for huge AP on attack, you probably do if you do want to use him on an attack team. Yeah, it's got quite a hefty rush there. The reduced damage taken from basic attacks by 50% is actually quite nice on a defense team or an attack team, because obviously if he does get focused, he's going to reduce basically his vulnerability. As a payback character, basic attacks is how you would take him down. The issue there would be if he is on a defense team, he's just going to be a massive window. Free AP gain, free rushes, and if he is going to have that camouflage up, it's kind of like low risk as well, because the thing about the rushes as well from multi-hit characters, let's say Franklin, who's brand new, if there were 2 characters alive, I could rush with Franklin on the character that wasn't Mr. Lee, and if Mr. Lee has camouflage, he will just actually stop the rush coming in from Franklin on the extra hits. So there would just be 0 risk of me rushing it. It's such a strange decision, that payback and camouflage combo. I'm really still questioning that. I just kind of see this guy being a very niche character right now on an attack team, but maybe in like 4 or 5 or 6 promos we could have 1 or 2 characters that come out and complement this guy on an attack team extremely well. And he is very powerful. Let's be honest. His rush is extremely powerful. 3,000 bleed damage for 3 turns. The massive buff. This is what you want on a bleed team, is huge amounts of defense buff where you just can't be taken out. And that active, of course, is great as well. The bleed instantly comes up, and that'll work very well on Onslaught, among other things, but just getting that bleed up really quickly just means you can just add to it instantly. So let's say you did use this guy as an off-trait character with a Raulito leader, you'd have everybody turn 1 with 2,100 bleed because of the leader skill and because of this active. Then you could lacerate any of those guys to 4,200. Instantly you're doing huge amounts of bleed damage on turn 2. It really depends on future characters that come out, but as a standalone character, even on an attack team, he's still going to be really dangerous, just because you can control when you do that active. The rush is very powerful, the active is very powerful even with the bleeds. So I do like this character, but it does just seem like they're missing a little bit. And just a heads up, this is early information on these characters, so things can change before release. Fingers crossed, and that weapon gets that 30% attack change to defense or HP, because it just doesn't make any sense. But do tell me what you think about Mr. Lee as an S-Class character. He is going to be the next promo character coming to Road to Survival. That is the end of my video. Thank you very much for tuning in, and as always, keep on surviving, guys. Keep on surviving.